Welcome to another episode of Deep Dive. I'm super excited for episode 3. We're going to be talking about growth, relationships, and purpose. In this specific episode, we're going to be discussing, what's your version of your rich life? And I always like to bring this topic up, whether I'm at work or whether I'm with my friends or family. Everyone has a different version of their rich life and what they would like to see. And it's super important when you're thinking about what journey you want to go on. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about, outside of material things and money, what is your version of your success and how can you get there? And it definitely starts with changing your mindset, changing your habits, and then changing who you're hanging out with and where you're surrounding yourself to get to the goals that you set for yourself, whether personally, professionally, or even long term. So, the first couple things we're going to spend some time on is talking about books that changed my perspectives that were really helpful for me, that made me grow. And a couple of these books were Ego is the Way. This book is by Ryan Holiday. This book does a really good job of explaining a lot of the key factors of what people are missing in their day-to-day life when it comes to ego and pride sometimes getting in the way. And as I like to say, this book kind of reminds you not to get in your own way sometimes. That can interfere with why you are able to drive success or not be successful. It's another great book that I highly recommend reading. It's another Ryan Holiday book. This Ryan Holiday book does a great job of explaining when you're thinking of the different obstacles that arise, whether it's personally or professionally, trying to get through a task. Really all life is actually making decisions on tasks that need to get done. So when you're thinking of the obstacle in the way, a great thing is, sometimes we get in our own way and how we're operating and doing things. So I think that is a great book to take a look at. And one other book that I don't have necessarily with me is The Four Agreements, and that's by Don Miguel Ruiz. Don't take things personally. Learn how to taking breaks and beliefs, meaning, we all come from a different background. We're all raised in different places. So taking things with a grain of salt, but just not taking it personally. My favorite quote and favorite thing I like to say is, it's not personal, it's just business. Because it's not personal, it's just business. A lot of things that you do, whether it's transactional or non-transactional, you're depositing either negative or positive things into your bank, right? And I say that to say that book does a really good job of helping you understand the bank analogy of saying, okay, hey, you have these different relationships, whether it's with your boss, your spouse, your girlfriend, or your friends. How often are you depositing positive things into those relationships? And how often are you putting negative things into those relationships? Because what you deposit into the banks, into those relationships, the book describes really well what you should be getting out of them. So that kind of gives you the output. But one of the other books that I wanted to bring up, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen before, is Atomic Habits. This is a great book to really get aligned with, not only discover the results of how to really get time management down packed, but it's an easy, improving way to help you understand yourself and create your own formula. I think that's super important. Whereas when a lot of people are in different versions of their life, different versions and phases of their career, so different books to help you align with whether it's time management, whether it's getting to goals. That book has been a fantastic book to read. I read it once a year for myself, as I found that there is something to gain and learn every year of reading it. So for the last 6 years of taking a look at the book, it's definitely been more enlightening every step of the way as you get older, but also as things are changing personally and professionally. So that was pretty much my take on the books that I highly recommend. These books didn't just motivate me, but they helped me build the real systems in my life that are driving what I would call my version of my rich life and my version of success. So that's why I bring them up. And if you're in a place where you're overwhelmed or it's unclear where you want to go, this is a great place to start. Working on self-improvement through reading books that can help guide you, because everyone has, again, their own formula that they need to follow, whether it's going to school, not going to school, going to trade school, whatever moment you're at in your life. These are good books to just check out and read. I got to move out of my parents' place or moving up in the world, whatever that looks like. And whatever you feel like your version of your rich life is, that's where you want to focus in on. Or what are the three things that are keeping me from getting there? Anytime you have a thing of sticky notes, it's great to actually write down your goals. And that's a great way to understand how and what you're doing and how you're getting where you want to go. If you write them down, check them off. Write down the next three, check them off. And then vice versa. If you have the three things that are keeping you from getting to where you want to go, write those three things down and actually remove them. So then what you'll start to see is you have three things that are positively that you're knocking out, but then you have three things negatively that you're knocking out that might impact you in a different way. They have really great AI tools. So if you're ever wondering, you can go to Gemini or ChatGPT. I highly recommend it, and ask for free AI agents to help me stay more organized. And they have great things like Notion, Confluence, and different tools like whether it's professional goals, whether it's just fitness goals, all those things are super important. So, I want to hop right into the next topic. And this topic is about relationships and communication. The important part, a lot of what we're seeing in 2025 is a lot of relationships are lacking substance. And in those substance of relationships, it's a lack of purpose. And some of that purpose in relationships comes from how well someone's able to communicate their soft skills or also articulate their hard skills. So we're going to break down real quick, what are hard skills and what are soft skills. And when I'm thinking of what are soft skills, soft skills are anywhere from working well with others, communication, anything that you can use, emotional intelligence, those are going to be soft skills. And then whenever you're thinking of hard skills, those are going to be tools like learning how to use Microsoft Teams, learning how to use Google Teams, or learning how to use any tool like a computer, for instance, or a hard skill like using a hammer and a nail. That's a hard skill that if you learn how to build a house or learn how to build a shed or build anything with wood and a nail, that's a hard skill to learn. So that's a balance of where I think when you're thinking of relationships and communication, emotional intelligence, as we started with those books really derive a great census of where you can get to work on those hard and soft skills. And when you're thinking about how this can help you not only in your partnerships, whether you're just starting to date or have been dating for a while or you're married, all of these things are still super important in relationships. And we're not just talking about romantic, this is also friendships, family, even work relationships, because no matter where you live in whatever state or wherever you're at in your life, shape your reality. And the reality is how well you're depositing those positive things, those negative things, or how well those relationships reflect. So, hard skills to sometimes learn when we're in relationships and communication is learning how to set clear boundaries. So be sure to always set clear boundaries with anyone when you're thinking of why you're doing something. Time management, being dependable. One of the super important things is how well and accountable can you be on the things you say you're going to be a part of, or the things you're going to do, or the things you plan to execute on. So that's something that's super important. But having tough conversations with respect. When we're thinking of having tough conversations, holding someone accountable is not a bad thing. Holding yourself accountable is not a bad thing. Having respect enough to do that is actually a positive thing to help people in all relationships, again, whether personal, professional, or in a romantic, to just make sure the respect is evenly distributed. And then when we're thinking of soft skills, like I mentioned before, emotional intelligence is super important. And that's just something that you can work on through working to be more mature around how people speak and how you speak to people. The emotional intelligence comes from how well you can control your emotions in situations that really invoke whether happiness, anger, sadness, whatever the emotion is that feels overwhelming, how well can you not only control it, but also not allow the emotion to control you. So that's going to be that level of soft skill. And then listening with intention. That's going to be super important. So when you're thinking of listening with intention, listening and actively listening to what someone's saying, it means making eye contact, really registering, saying, yes, I definitely hear what you're saying, and giving that actual feedback of what you hear. And then understanding the love language and communication styles. Love language is a little bit more for your partner or someone you're dating or who you're married to, but communication styles are super important. And I think that's a barrier where a lot of people haven't been able to capture who and what they are in their communication styles, where some people have a hard time communicating, and some people have an easy time communicating. And the hard part of communicating only comes from not being able to articulate the words that you feel. But if you are able to articulate what you feel in a short sentence or a short way of communicating, that's still okay too. And mind you, sharing and communicating how you communicate is the first step to helping anyone around you understand your communication style. So it's super important to be not only over vocal about how you feel about what you think is on your mind, but being open about why you feel the way you do, because that can is the only way to really help someone understand what and where you're at and what point in your life. As I'm thinking of, hey, we all have brains and thoughts. We can't go into someone's brain or ask their brains or their thoughts specifically to what they know or how they feel unless they tell us. So, because we can't read minds, that's the first place where communication comes in. And then when you combine these hard and soft skills, you show a better you to others, but also it starts with being able to show yourself a better you. You'll start to recognize looking in the mirror that these things are changing within yourself. People around you will start to capture and see so much change within yourself. And then, your relationships will start to flourish. People will want to start to be around you more often. And then when you're thinking of how this affects you professionally, a lot of times in the professional world, this can affect you with, how close you can get to the things you want in your career, whether it's a promotion or whether it's an increase in pay, how to ask for more of what you want out of your career. All those things come from, how well are you able to build your relationships. But that's really the main topic of how I would think I would react to, building relationships, trying to find purpose, how to use those hard and soft skills, and really what to look for. And then, I want to spend some time real quick on topic number 3 when I'm thinking of finding your purpose. Let's be real. The purpose isn't found in a paycheck or the status or a job title or, it's not about where you live or what zip code or what state or what you have. You have to ask yourself better questions than that. And it starts with the substance. The substance is, what do I want to be remembered for? What impact do I have on people's lives? And what are the things I would still do even if I wasn't getting paid? So whenever I'm thinking of those 3 questions, and we'll start with what would I do? What impact do I have on people's lives? We're all here to help one another. So the balance of why we're spending our time, whether it's a small village of people that you support or a large village of people you support, or it's a large following of people that you support. The impact that you have and what you say is super important, because you never know what someone else is going through. And because we were all raised in different homes and different lifestyles, it's super important to showcase different things in different ways, because culture and diversity is not only super important, it's necessary to help other people grow. So that's why it's super important to understand, when you're looking for your purpose, what kind of impact do you feel that you want to leave, not only with the people around you, but leave on the earth that's a little bit better placed than how you found it. And then, what do I want to be remembered for? The kind of things, answering that question for myself, I want to be remembered for doing the right things, helping as many people as I could, but also getting people through the times that they felt like, hey, I don't really see an out of how I'm going to get through this, or things weren't always panning out the way they wanted to. But in those moments, those were just moments. You can get through anything that you want to get through. So even though you might be going through anything in life, there's other sides to it as long as you're willing to do the work and get through it. And then the last one is, what are things I would still do if I wasn't getting paid? I would still be volunteering. I would still be trying to help people get as further as they can in their life and their careers. I would be still trying to support people in any way I could to help them further themselves. And I think when we're thinking of getting paid, of course, material things and paychecks take care of the things we want and need. But when we're talking about purpose and substance, just combining those 2 things, what do you want? What impact do you want to have? And also, what things would you like to do outside of work, if you weren't getting paid for it? So those are some questions, to ask yourself. And purpose isn't a destination, it's a journey. What are the steps to find my purpose? There are no real steps, because there's no true destination. As even myself and many other people, and no matter what age you are, you're still constantly finding the purpose of what you're doing. It's not a bad thing to flip pancakes and eggs at all. They want to find a way to kind of move out of doing that. How do I do that? I found a lot of purpose in that time while I was doing that in that point in time in my life. So, mind you, that's part of the journey. And then whenever you're thinking of every small decision takes you closer and further to where you're meant to be. So just always remember that. Like, it feels like you're so far away from where you want to go, but little do we know we're always so much closer to where we want to be because we've taken the small necessary steps to get there. And appreciate everyone joining me on Deep Dive. If you felt that this was helpful, or if you felt like there was something to take away, please like and subscribe and share with others. Definitely going to be having it on Spotify and YouTube. When we're talking about next episode, I'm going to be talking about entrepreneurship. We're going to be talking about how you can actually take actionable steps now to become an entrepreneur. A lot of people assume that because where they're at in their career or where they're working at, that entrepreneurship and being able to be a business owner doesn't exist. And we're also just going to be talking about different websites and things and tools you can actually use to actually leverage being able to start an LLC, go purchase a turnkey business, to then evaluate whether or not where you're at in your career, how you can leverage that to then move further in your entrepreneurship down the road, no matter where you're working at. So, using my example of, making eggs and pancakes, at some point, if I saved up enough money and started an LLC, well, we're going to be discussing what that looks like, even if you're at a point of like saying, hey, I don't feel like I've worked the job that could ever get me to own a business. That's actually not true, but the information isn't available all the time there. So I'm going to be breaking that down, and we're going to go into a deeper dive around entrepreneurship, but also showing you actual tactics of what you can do and what some of the things that I'm doing and other friends of mine and cohorts and business owners are doing, because what you all will see in the next 5 to 10 years is there's going to be a large transformation of wealth in actual movement of it, because we're going to see a lot of businesses who've been ran for the last 25 or 30 years by anyone who's in their 50s or 60s now. 10 years down the road, when they're in their 60s or 70s or 80s, they're maybe ready to purchase these businesses. A lot of those turnkey businesses are going to be ready and available. So we're going to be discussing that. I'm super excited for what's next. Again, if you felt like this video was helpful, if you felt like this was interesting, please share, subscribe, and again, we appreciate you guys stopping by, and we'll see you next time on Deep Dive.